Skills in science, technology, engineering, and math that can help give you a leg up to a high-paying and rewarding STEM profession. Gain practical experience with emerging technology and equipment not found in the civilian world. The Army National Guard can get you started in an array of STEM-related career fields such as information technology, communication systems, Special Forces engineers, technical engineering, air traffic control, and chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear science. Get a head start on your career in an exciting new field while earning money to pay for college, all while serving in your own community. Log on to NationalGuard.com or talk to a recruiter in your area to learn about all of the STEM career opportunities available to you in the Army National Guard. Sponsored by the Alabama Army National Guard. Aired by the Alabama Broadcasters Association and this station.
Want to help pull the plug on cyber terrorists? Or get the skills to work with satellites and other space technology? How about learning the avionics inside stealth fighters? And do you want to reach your goals fast? You can do it and take your life to the next level in the Air National Guard. Because you serve part-time, you do it in a way that works for you. You can achieve your career and educational goals with plenty of time for family and friends. The Air Guard offers nearly 200 career specialties, so you'll get the high-tech skills you need to kick your career into high gear. You can also be eligible for college tuition assistance. The best part is, in the Air Guard, you'll be making a real difference by serving your community and country. So get your future off the ground in the Air National Guard. Call the Alabama Air National Guard at 1-800-TOGO-ANG or visit goang.com/AL.
Good morning and hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Compact Discourse right here on WEGL 91.1 FM, Auburn's premier home for student-run radio since 1971. That's over 50 years now. I'm your host, Jack Hart, alongside my colorman, Davis Carroll, alongside the irrevocable Chris DiBias, and the one and only WEGL station manager, Grayson Moyer. We'd like to welcome in our listeners and viewers from around the Auburn Opelika Megaplex and around the world, however you may be tuning in today, whether that be on your terrestrial radio antenna, through the information superhighway at weglfm.com, or tuning in after the fact, listening to our podcast, or watching us on Eagle Eye TV. We are happy to have you here in the booth with us for Auburn's only student-run drive time morning show. And now, we are broadcasting live from the Bradley Basin WEGL studios in the Harold Melton Student Center on the campus of Auburn University, where it is a lovely 74 degrees and sunny this fine Tuesday morning. We hope you had a fine, long weekend, but we are back for this Tuesday show. It's Compact Discourse. We wish you a most sincere good morning as we get on with the show and welcome in our guests for today into the studio. Davis, Chris, Grayson, how are we doing today? We'll start with Davis.
I'm pretty hungry, but I still feel good.
Well, you know, some of the best decisions in the world have been made on an empty stomach.
But you're not supposed to go shopping on an empty stomach.
That's not a great decision.
Okay, fair. Give me one decision that's made on an empty stomach.
D-Day?
Cuban Missile Crisis.
There you go. JFK, notoriously hungry.
I just know that.
Okay.
Chris,
whatever.
Take it away.
I'm feeling outstanding. I'm doing great. I feel amazing. Ready to take on the day, tackle the day. It's a new day.
Attack the day?
Attack the day.
Get after it.
The order to breathe fire has been given.
Are you not going to elaborate on that at all?
I don't need to. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
All right, Chris. All right. I slept for 3 hours. I'm doing great on this fine Tuesday morning. This is my own doing. My own hubris brought me to this location.
We're all human. It happens to the best of us. Those 2-hour, 3-hour nights, they happen.
I'm happy you've chosen to spend your 3-hour deprived sleep day, at least the morning portion of it, with me here on Compact Discourse. So at this point, I would like to remind our audience that if at any point in the next 2 hours you feel so inclined to ask a question, drop a hot take, answer our trivia question, which is still pending from yesterday, or in the highly unlikely event that we get something wrong, you want to correct us, you can call in at 334-844-WEGL. That's 334-844-9345. Or you can send us a tweet at CDiscAU. That's at CDISCAU. And our dedicated team of call screeners will handle your inquiry and figure out how the phone works in here. All right. We'll blow the cobwebs off of it. So we're going to hop right into the show today, and of course we're going to get to how everybody spent their Labor Day weekend. What was it like having a day off of school after so many days off of school in the summer? It's the first holiday of the year, so what do we make out of it?
It felt awesome. Just have that extra day was really, really invigorating.
It really makes you wish every weekend was long.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you get your 2 relaxed days, and then you get your do stuff day.
Yeah.
Normally, I'm a day off at the beginning of the week complainer because that's just the kind of person I am. Like, oh, it's going to throw off my schedule. And regardless of the fact that it did in this case, I did enjoy it. I slept in for the first time in about 2 months. And while that did bring me to the place I'm at right now, it felt great yesterday.
The ends justify the means.
Sure.
Would it be best to permanently get Friday off or permanently get Monday off?
Would they effectively result in the same thing?
Well, it would change the culture in America. Garfield would hate Tuesdays, for one. So
Okay.
it has some pretty big
What would TGI
implications.
Fridays
Do you think
be?
you'd still like lasagna?
Yeah, maybe it wouldn't be
TGI
Fridays,
Thursdays.
TGI Thursdays.
I'm a big advocate for half-day Fridays. I think half-day Fridays is the absolute move because it hits the sort of midpoint of these where you still really appreciate it, but you still feel like you've gotten work done and been productive.
It also makes you feel really sneaky.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm getting away with something.
That's what
leaving
I
at
did at my old
noon.
job, and they didn't call
Okay.
me out for weeks.
So if we did half-day Fridays, or I propose full-day Mondays, would y'all be okay with Wednesday, Friday classes also being an hour 15?
So just normal Mondays?
Honestly,
Monday.
you mean
No, I mean
for
like
the
Monday
class
off.
schedule. Okay.
Monday off.
Davis,
you
I
have Friday.
think you're onto it. I think if we were consistent with
Yeah.
hour 15, it'd be better. The only reason I don't like Tuesday, Thursday classes is because
That
the ones are
extra-
shorter
yeah.
by contrast.
I don't know. Sometimes
I
there's-
could get used to it.
But I will say the hour 15 Tuesday, Thursdays makes those Monday, Wednesday, Friday feel like a breeze.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if they were all the
awesome.
same class,
Yeah.
high school, my classes were an
Yeah,
hour
mine
long.
were
They
too.
weren't just 50.
It's always hard when you have not the same class every day to try to squeeze a schedule that's symmetrical into a 5-day week.
Right.
Because I remember in high school we had A and B days,
Yeah.
and then on Friday it would sometimes be A and sometimes be B. It was alternate, but that meant if you had a class on Wednesday, you might not go there again until Tuesday, because you could have an A Thursday, an A Friday, and an A back
So
on
you just
Monday.
miss a class entirely?
I mean, it would shake out that way sometimes, and then they changed it sometimes to where it would be skinny Mondays, where you just go to all 8 of your classes for half of the time.
What?
on Mondays or
we
Fridays?
didn't
I don't know.
do A and B days.
we
back
didn't.
in the
High school's a
813.
mirage.
We had like A through we had like 5 classes, not counting our first period, which was always locked, and they rotated, and you went to
I had
full
that.
period
I had
every
that in
single
junior
time.
high. Yeah,
That's-
better system.
That is crazy.
It-
That's
I mean, like
insane.
once you kind of got used to it, it wasn't bad.
I had 7 periods in the day, and I went to the same 7 classes every day.
Same.
And that made it so easy for me to not forget where to go and when all my classes were.
That's when all the folks would gather together at lunch. That's what made lunch special.
Yeah,
but once you knew, like, if it was an A day and then you had third period lunch, you'd be like, okay, I know where my friends are going to be.
Third
You'd get it down
period
pretty
lunch,
quick.
you're eating at like 10:15.
No,
The
like
periods were
lunch.
longer.
No, I mean like lunch wave, like lunch
Oh,
wave
yeah.
3.
We
You go
did
at
have
different
that,
times.
too.
Oh, okay.
Eat your pizza and
We
milk,
all-
milk at 10:30.
we all
an
have-
American kid.
We have better than pizza and milk.
We all have a different understanding of what periods and lunch periods mean for our high schools.
This is actually some discourse I've seen on. I'm sorry, I said that. On TikTok recently
it.
about.
If you'd like to make it a little smaller, I think it would fit the theme of the show.
All right. It was between British people and Americans complaining about each other's school structures and being like, you must be dumb because our school, like our academic systems are set up differently in the way that like when we enter college and what we're prepared for in high school versus college. And first of all, everyone shut up.
That was a good internet voice.
But it's just like, well, that's how they all sound in my head. But it's like, it's the same thing here. Like we just have a little bit different systems, but we can't comprehend why you would do it the way that we're not used to. Because, you're just stuck in it for 12 years.
Humans like patterns.
Yeah. Well, humans are just used to certain things.
Yeah.
In America, our lunch food that we serve high schoolers is of higher quality than luxurious English meals. How about that?
Okay.
They're still what is it?
Bread sandwich?
They're still eating like the Luftwaffe was overhead.
Chris, you were rapidly approaching the annoying internet voice. You got to be careful over there. You're getting in on the discourse.
Here's what I have to say.
Oh,
All
that's
right.
an A level.
So the theme of the day is, of course, attack the day. Using the Brian Harsin mentality, we're gonna go 1-0 today. I feel like we've already gone 1-0 today because
Let's go 2-0.
we made it in here.
Yeah.
Let's get another dub for today. We worked out this morning. Our arms hurt, but we're still here.
Pool
We're making
day.
it happen. Chris, I know you wanted to share something that fascinates you. So I hope it will fascinate all of us, and that is what the Romans did to stay in shape.
We were having this conversation at old Tiger Iron this morning about how it can be hard to work out sometimes, and then it popped into my head a video and article I had watched/read a long time ago about how the Romans trained back in the olden days.
Yeah,
I think we were talking about
what spurred this conversation was sometimes the music at Tiger Iron's a little suspect. It's hard to get your pump going when you're listening to like Boston. And
when you
Queen.
hear "We Are the Champion" by Queen, it doesn't really make you want to live.
Davis posited, what was it like working out in the 1400s and having to like live to Gregorian
That'd be
chants
awesome.
and whatnot? And Chris has our answer.
Okay, so first off, the Romans, when they would recruit out of the country a lot. That's not to say they wouldn't recruit out of cities, but the country is where they mainly looked because, in the opinions of the recruiters, those in the country were already accustomed to harsh life, which made them a better fit to be a soldier. And so I'll talk about kind of their basic training regiment, which is about 4 months long. And before they even touched a weapon, what they had to do is they had to march 20 Roman miles in 5 hours, which is about 18 and a half miles in, I guess, modern distance. After they did that, they would do that every single day. And after they did that, they would have to upgrade to 24 Roman miles in a day, which is about 20 modern miles, I guess. So once they were able to do that and all the weak people were weeded out, they would then move on to their weapons training, where they would wear their full gear because it was important for them to train as they fight. And then they would also use a wooden sword that weighed twice as heavy as the traditional Roman sword.
Oh, it's like shooting with the big basketball.
So they would use that heavy sword for a while, and before they would move on to training against one another, they would have to hit basically like a wooden dummy, and they would train on that for a while before they would move on to the one another. Obviously, they wouldn't kill one another, but they had to train against moving people because you're not going to be fighting someone that's stagnant. And then they would move on to their infantry tactics. And I thought that was interesting just because we think about the Romans as like the best military to walk the earth for their time. And basically how they would train is they would just walk a whole lot and fight a whole lot, which when you think about it, I mean, what were you expecting? It makes sense.
That's what an army does back in the day is march and fight.
Pretty interesting.
That's what Chris is gonna make us do next.
We're gonna walk.
We're gonna
20 miles
walk
tomorrow.
20 miles on the treadmill
You
and
see
then hit
three
each other.
individuals in plate mail on Donahue. That's us.
Just know that's us. Full Roman garb
That'd be kind of cool.
and sandals.
And sandals.
I think Davis is going to start getting into live action role play.
What?
Roman,
Why'd you call me out?
you said it would be kind of cool. I think it'd also be kind of cool.
Okay,
but
so me and Chris would get into live
I'm not
action
saying I
role play
wouldn't be there.
Romans.
I
think
feel
it'd
like
be dope.
those things that covered your sideburns on a Roman helmet
Yeah.
would get really annoying.
What?
They're like constantly dangling.
They're cool.
keep
Well, you
hitting
tie
you.
it. They tied it so it wouldn't be dangling.
I've only seen it dangling.
grow
Did you ever
up.
play Rise, Son of Rome?
I think I've only
Jack?
seen it in Night of the Museum, to be fair.
As you would rise up in the ranks, your helmet would get a lot cooler looking. They'd have the brooms on there. I don't know all the ranks and stuff. I'm not one of those guys. You know, the ones that are too into Rome?
Yeah.
That's a red flag. I don't know the difference between
I think
like
being
a
into
centurion
Rome-
and a
I think
legionnaire
being-
and whatnot.
I think being too into Rome is better than being too into World War II. Like, way too into it.
That's an interesting debate to have. Is it better to be a weird World War II kid or a weird Roman Empire kid.
Well, I mean, like, because if you read, like, the Percy Jackson books as a kid.
I don't know, man. If a dude starts sprouting out random facts about an emperor no one's ever heard of, that's kind of like what do you do in your free time?
Okay, that's fair.
They can both be descendants of the same guy. You can have the problem. The Rome guy is like a level above the World War II guy because if they can both be into it for the wrong reasons, which I'm not going to go into. But if the Rome guy's into it for the wrong reasons, he's a lot worse
That's true.
than the
That's
World
fair.
War II guy.
That's fair.
I feel like there's a bit more of a learnedness to learning about Rome too, because it's less interesting.
Sure.
Well,
I feel like there's a lot more leeway with being the Rome guy.
You also have to seek that. Like, there's not like a Rome. I mean, obviously there's books about Rome in the bookstore, but like you go to Barnes and Noble, there's a whole section on World War II. You got to seek out the Roman knowledge. It's not going to find you.
Well, when you get into that debate, it's kind of like I can see how Rome would be far more interesting just because it's more niche. And so you feel like you're searching it out and learning about it. While World War II is readily available to everyone, but then that's when you know like the facts of World War II, like the nitty gritty. That means that you really dug hard because you can scratch at the surface all day. But it's also interesting because World War II is like traditional good versus evil, so that might interest people there. While Rome is just like how'd they do that, you know?
History's
So
mysteries.
it's a different invitation.
Why'd that dude set Rome on fire? That's the interesting thing to learn about.
Why'd they spread so thin?
Why'd he fiddle on the roof?
More of history's mysteries that we may never know the answer to. All right, we're going to head to a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to continue discussing productivity and continue to attack the day here on Compact Discourse. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back.
Harrison Smith. You may know me from my work as Scuba, one of the hosts of the hit award-winning show Nerdcore on WEGL 91.1 FM. But what you may not know about me is that I'm a website enthusiast. That's why I'm here to tell you about WeagleFM.com. It's our hotspot on the web with live broadcast articles and more. It's like a gift that keeps on giving. Tune into your favorite shows at any time with a 24/7 online stream right on the homepage. And don't forget to check out the schedule for our station's full selection of music, sports, and talk shows. For the sports fans, there's articles aplenty covering all of the current events in football, basketball, and beyond. For those music fans, WEGL FM has got you covered. We have album and concert reviews and theme playlists for any mood. We even have live musical performances with WEGL Sessions. There's more than enough content here to keep you procrastinated when you really should be studying for that test. That's right, we know you've been slacking off. Get back to it, lazy. So, no matter what sound you're looking for, we've got it only on WeagleFM.com. That's WEGLFM.com and WEGL 91.1 FM, Auburn.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzz driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You could kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says, "I'm a catch," more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Well, good morning, and welcome back to Compact Discourse right here on WEGL 91.1 FM, WEGLFM.com, or you might just be watching on our YouTube live stream. If you're doing that, we welcome you in to the visual aspect of the show. We want to remind you that WEGL is available to follow on Twitter and Instagram. That's at WEGL_AU on both Twitter and Instagram. Check us out on AU Involve as well. Just search for WEGL if you're interested in joining or have any inquiries for your SAO or any other related thing there. Also, yeah, check out the Instagram for all the events we have coming up with WEGL. I know we have another exciting Auburn Stages coming up this week on Thursday. We've also got Dylan coming in to talk about that Auburn Stages, hopefully on tomorrow's show, where we'll also have JP and Will Root to discuss all things music, as we are wont to do on a WEGL Wednesday. Also want to remind everybody that we will not be having a show on Thursday this week, so for all of our regular listeners, we thank you for your understanding with that one, and we hope you are enjoying today's show, as I am, of course, your host, Jack Hart, alongside Davis Carroll, Chris DiBias, and Grayson Moyer. In the first segment, we talked about productivity, the 5-day work week, and the Roman grind set, as we look to see what we can glean from the ancient civilizations about how to live our lives to the best of their abilities today.
I think it's always cool to see how the legendary civilizations and warriors came to be. Because you think the Roman training regimen is crazy. Just wait till you start reading about how the Spartans used to train. That might be a conversation.
They'd leave you on a hill to die.
They kick you out at 6 years old, and if you didn't come back alive, you would just die.
That's
how
like
it
Boy
goes.
Scouts.
What's also crazy is when you were born, they would take you to like the elder, and if they were like, "This baby looks weak," they would allegedly throw you off a cliff. It's not been proven, but it's been documented. So,
Hey, modern medicine has an acronym for that.
it's kind of crazy.
FLK. Funny looking kid. I mean, they don't kill you, but they'll note that you look
Noted.
weird.
They'll tick the box.
Well, we can get into
Reason
Spartans
for
on another
further
day.
inquiry.
Spartans are crazy.
Spartans are crazy. With your shield or on it.
Once
crazy.
you played Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you learn a little bit.
I never played Assassin's
It's actually
Creed
really
Odyssey.
good. It's actually really, genuinely really good. It's all in Greece.
Assassin's Creed is hit or miss for me. I can think it'd be pretty boring.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey is the best one behind Black Flag is tied with it. Black Flag's still kind of repetitive in its walking gameplay.
Gamer chat.
Now, Davis, you have picked up a game fairly recently. Do you want to tell us about that? A Spider-Man 2 for the Xbox.
The arguably best Spider-Man. I'd argue that
What was the release year while we're
2004.
discussing this?
2004.
Could this be a preview to a future topic on Behind the Lens?
Through the Lens.
That's
Through the
not a
Lens?
video game.
Sorry.
Oh, Spider-Man, but yeah.
It is a movie tie-in game, so that is a good segue, Chris. It could be potentially this week and or next week recording, and I believe you might be joining us for it.
Perhaps.
But the game is really good. It is the controls are wonky. It's from 2004. The graphics are pretty good, all things considered. The map is also pretty big, also all things considered.
Now, you were saying the Xbox version is better than the PS2 version.
I never played the PS2 version. I've heard the Xbox version's kind of cleaner.
Okay. Interesting.
But I never grew up with the PS2. I knew PS2's the highest selling console of all time.
I played it a whole lot as a kid, but for whatever reason, I can't remember what console I had it on. I had it on GameCube.
Oh,
I think I had it on
the rare
GameCube.
GameCube Spider-Man
Yeah.
2 player.
It was fun. I remember when you fight Mysterio, like probably 60% through the game, I always really struggled because you have to web swing to the Statue of Liberty. But if you would miss like one of the helicopters or platforms or whatever, you would fall into the water and have to start over. I'd get really mad.
Spider-Man 2 was unique because it was the first Spider-Man game where when you swung, it actually stuck to objects. So it's kind of difficult to swing if you don't like finesse it right.
I think it brings up an interesting topic about rose-tinted glasses or nostalgia.
Sure.
Because I think we all have memories of Spider-Man 2 when you're swinging through the city.
It was awesome.
It was awesome, and you're just freaking flying, not struggling at all. But then when we come back, like 15 years later,
It was hard.
I'm hitting every building, and I can barely swing.
You started getting the
straight.
hang of it, though.
A little bit. You know, it's my gamer reflexes started to come back. I was a gamer back in the day.
Spider-Man,
I still like to dabble.
Spider-Man PS4 is a lot more like, it helps you a lot more.
Modern technology.
Spider-Man 2 is a lot more fulfilling when you get a good swing going. I'll say that.
We were also talking a lot about the sort of the age of the movie tie-in game yesterday and how they're not necessarily really as common anymore. Like, can you speak on that? Was that like part of the industry for the long time, or was there this like golden age in the 2000s?
I'm thinking that that's pretty much a dead industry now, isn't it?
They make the occasional one that are like pretty cheap, in the 90s was really big when like 16-bit, all that was going on. Like SNES, there was so many tie-in games.
Yeah, you would have Time Cop.
A lot of products had games.
Yeah.
Like there was like 7-Up and Cheetos.
The McDonald's game.
Catch the Noid.
I guess it was also just faster to develop them at that point because of the limitations of the time.
But I mean, there was absolutely a big market. I mean, game development is so time-consuming and expensive now that a lot of studios, I don't think, will waste their time on a tie-in game. But I can remember that a lot of my experience growing up with the GameCube was just going to Blockbuster on a Sunday and renting a game for the week. And more often than not, it was just a movie tie-in game because I had seen the movie.
I think. Go ahead, David.
I think that's the biggest thing because now with the age of the internet, you can look up if a game's good. Movie tie-in games are usually not that good. There's obviously the exceptions. Spider-Man 2 is the biggest one I could think of. You just go pick up a game and then you're like, oh, I love this movie. I'm gonna pick up this game and play it. But now you can look it up and it sucks. You're not gonna get it.
I have a theory, and I think it is the perfect synchronization of ideas and quality of games. Like Davis was saying, in the 90s, brands had games. Like Chex Mix had a game.
Heck yeah.
Domino's had a game.
And the one we could run with the dude. Or Pepsi had a game where you'd run with the dude.
We talked about Pepsi Man.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah. My WEGL debut was all about Pepsi Man.
There was a lack of original ideas, I guess, in the 90s. And then the 2000s came along. There wasn't really more original ideas started coming, but game development was starting to be taken seriously. So you still had people that were willing to dabble into the brand. And what resulted was a lot of movie tie-ins or TV show tie-ins. Like you would get things that ended up being hidden gems. And so, like, one of my childhood memories, I'm very fond of the King Kong tie-in game, which is a weird combination of third-person action playing as Kong and then first-person shooter playing as Adrian Brody's character, Jack something. The Wolverine Origins game, and then even stuff like the Godfather game. Like, they were really scraping the bottom of the barrel. It's like a GTA ripoff, but it ended up being a pretty decent quality game that you would never have expected to come out. And then when the 2010s came around, the movie tie-in kind of died, and you started getting more original ideas in gaming as it became a mega industry.
Yeah, I'll also, I mean, it's impossible to ignore the effect that indie games had on the industry, where like people would when they want to spend a little less and just have something to kill time, they don't want a 60-hour, Red Dead Redemption. They just want something to play on a weekend. They'd rather jump on an indie game than a movie tie-in game.
Yeah.
Some ones I have fond memories of were the Barnyard tie-in game, which was kind of like a baby's first Red Dead. It was just you walked around the barn, like did quests, like it was open world. The world would slowly progress, and that was fun. And then the Over the Hedge tie-in game, which was kind of it was a 4-person, obviously. You could play it single player, but it was the 4 main characters of the movie, like the skunk and whatever. And you'd go, and it was kind of like a 3D platformer with some like shooting mechanics. So I remember those being good. I would not bet the farm on them being stellar titles if I had to go back and play them this afternoon. But I mean, fond memories.
I've heard the Shrek one's surprisingly real. I never played that one, but I thought it was amazing.
The Shrek racing game was very good.
I was about to give a shout out to Shrek Fully Loaded.
Shrek Smash and Crash Racing. Check it out.
Shrek Fully Loaded was like this weird, like pseudo open world levels, and you would have a bunch of tasks to do. Like I remember the first one, you had to get Hansel and Gretel to the chocolate house or whatever. And I mean, I've watched a few videos recently just to get the nostalgia going, and it's definitely not as good as I thought it was when I was a kid, but I would play Shrek Fully Loaded so much. It was just these weird open world levels, and you would progress through it to these different set pieces. It was just crazy. Shout out to Shrek. Shrek Fully Loaded.
There are a few movie tie-in games now. There's the Suicide Squad game coming out, but that's not most movie tie-in games in the olden times, I guess, like 10, 15, 20 years ago, they would follow the plot of the movie, but the Suicide Squad game has its independent plot. There's the Mad Max game that has its own plot, but that was around the time that the Mad Max Fury Road came out. There is the Avengers game that came out. I think that's like, it doesn't happen as often, but if it does, it kind of goes independent from the movie. It just kind of has the name brand recognition.
I think the equivalent you see a lot more is like branded tie-ins for like mobile games. Like I think that's the progression. We used to see video games in general the way we see mobile games now. Faster and cheaper to put out, smaller scope, smaller sort of overall play time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's much more often, especially when you consider how expensive movies are now, that cut came out of their marketing budget, which was paying for the tie-in game. So we are seeing fewer of the original ideas, fewer of the hidden gems because they're sort of throwaway games at this point.
Excuse me, Shrek Extra Large, not Shrek Fully Loaded.
And I don't mean to fully rag on like stuff that you can play on your phone, but generally there's not that much effort put into it for movie stuff like that.
Interesting. I wonder if there was a Herbie Fully Loaded game.
There definitely
That's
was.
probably where I
100%.
got that.
Also, a ton of these were racing games. Like I think those were
Racing games are easy. Yeah,
The Cars tie-in game to the movie Pixar movie Cars.
I heard that was good.
It's very good. It's a racing game and like an open world, like kind of like a baby's first Red Dead, like Barnyard was.
Everything is baby.
Here you go, Game Boy Advance
Any
fully loaded.
simple open world game, but I mean I'm here for it. So
Does anyone remember the Mortal Kombat game that had the like Mario Kart mini game that you could unlock in the crypt?
No.
It was. I'll do some research over the break because I know Jack wants to get to a break. But there was a Mortal Kombat game with a Mario Kart mini game. I'm gonna Google it.
all right, so we are going to head to a quick break, and when we come back, Chris is going to research the Mortal Kombat Mario Kart game. We're also going to do some weather, talk about what's coming up next week in WEGL, and we'll see where the conversation goes. You're listening to Compact Discourse right here on WEGL 91.1 FM.
A promise was made. A promise that hit the beaches of Normandy. A covenant that split the skies over Berlin. A vow that captured Iwo Jima. A promise was made. A solemn oath that liberated Seoul. A sacred trust that defended Quezon. A pact that dug in Da Nang. A contract that weathered Tet. A promise was made. A pledge that stormed the desert in Iraq. A bond that patrolled door to door in Fallujah. An IOU that braved IEDs in Kandahar. A promise was made to America's veterans. A promise we all must keep. DAV fights for all veterans and their families so they get the health care, financial benefits, and support they earned. If you're a veteran who needs help or you'd like to help us keep the promise, visit DAV.org.
All across the nation, we are here for our communities.
We're doing our part to get supplies where it's needed in order to fight COVID-19 together.
It feels good to be out there to assist our community.
I would like our friends and family to know that your National Guardsmen are always ready and always there.
Visit NationalGuard.com to find out more. Sponsored by the Alabama Army National Guard. Aired by the Alabama Broadcasters Association and this station.
Grays, work, sports, bikinis. 18-year-old guys have a lot on their minds. Accidentally breaking the law probably isn't one of them. Yet that's exactly what young men will be doing if they fail to register with Selective Service. So if you know a guy turning 18, do him a favor. Remind him. Fortunately, it'll only take him a few minutes because that's all it takes to register at sss.gov. Then he can get back to his distractions. Homework. sss.gov. Register. It's the law.
You know what really gets a party started? Indoor baseball. Yeah, just find a broom or a pool cue, and you can use like anything as a ball. Cans, bottles, shoes.
Hey bro, toss me that avocado.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving, the ultimate party foul. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Compact Discourse right here on WEGL 91.1 FM, WEGLFM.com, and WEGL's YouTube page, where we are broadcasting live in living color with the lights on now, in an attempt to remedy some technical difficulties. So we are back in the discussion. I'm, of course, your host, Jack Hart, joined alongside Davis Carroll, Chris DiBias, and station manager Grayson Moyer. We were having a fruitful conversation about all things this Tuesday morning. We hope everyone enjoyed their long weekend. It is the bottom of the hour, so it is, of course, your time for your Auburn, Alabama weather report, where currently it is 75 degrees and sunny. The high today is 85. Low today is 70. We are looking at a 9% chance of rain this morning, partly cloudy. It's going to get up to 83 this afternoon with a 33% chance of rain with isolated thunderstorms. This evening it's going to go down to 74 degrees, and your overnight temp is a cool 72 with a 15% chance of rain. We're also keeping our eyes on Hurricane Larry, which is still a Category 3 out in the Atlantic Ocean. It is still making its way across the ocean, although it is making a northerly turn. So with any luck, it will avoid the mainland of North America entirely. Currently, it's sitting a few hundred miles off the northeast coast of Puerto Rico. So it is making a turn north, and it looks like it's getting downgraded to a Category 2 as things progress. So luckily, Hurricane Larry is not looking to make landfall anytime soon. All right, that was your weather update, as it was the bottom of the hour, but let's jump right back into our discussion about nostalgia, about rose-tinted glasses, and about, what makes us happy.
If we're talking about nostalgia, I think a common thing is kids' movies a lot. Somebody was talking about this. I can't remember what movie it was, but it was adult fans of a children's series being like, "Oh, this new movie that's going to come out is terrible," and like the kids won't care, or they won't notice that it looks bad. Like this is just their equivalent of what you had. Like what is y'all's equivalent of that? What is your series for that, where they're still releasing new media and you see the new ones, it's like, oh, that's terrible, but the new kids are not going to notice?
I think I think there's a balance to it. So the argument, it goes one way or the other, is like you said, oh, the kids are going to enjoy it. So Dan, it's like, well, just because it's a kids movie doesn't mean it can't be it can't not receive criticism. Like, it can still receive criticism. I think some examples you see with them, like Boss Baby series or some of the more recent Pixar movies, which I personally haven't seen them, so I'm not going to put an opinion out on them, but I've heard some things where, people our age or older are maybe not as impressed by it anymore, but at the same time,
I've heard they've become very formulaic and predictable, but I mean, the kids don't care. They're just here for the songs and the colors.
I think it's just because when we were growing up, we were watching movies like Toy Story, Finding Nemo, all the Pixar, Disney movies, even non-Disney or Pixar, like Coraline and whatnot. Shrek is literally an American classic. You can still go back today and watch them and get the same emotions. Like, I know watching the end of Toy Story 3 to this day, I mean, I'm all choked up watching them get handed off from Andy to the little girl whose name I can't remember, but it's very sad. It's not the same nowadays, because if I go and I watch, for instance, Luca or something, I'm not going in as a kid. I'm going in as a 23-year-old man. So the story's not going to have the same impact on me as maybe a 10-year-old or 11-year-old who's going to be able to look back on that movie in 15, 20 years and remember how they felt watching it for the first time.
It's also worth pointing out that, I think our inherent bias is to, seek out the sort of very obvious cash grab, corporate boring stuff, and not the more interesting newer kids movies. Like, you called out a lot of really great kids movies, and I think stuff like that is still being produced. Where I'm seeing this sort of opinion war is stuff like SpongeBob. Like, I hear it a lot of, man, new SpongeBob is so terrible, the older seasons, but when we were 6, we weren't thinking about the intricate comedy or references to the band Ween of early SpongeBob.
Or French impressionist painters.
That's the thing, though, is stuff like SpongeBob, and then if you want to get into other kid shows,
I think
it's like Phineas and Ferb,
Scooby-Doo
Shouder.
has a lot of discourse about how Scooby-Doo, because there's been so many reboots of it.
Sure.
Scooby-Doo. The thing is, it goes back to what Jack was saying, how it became so formulaic. Like, when we were growing up, kid shows, they would tackle more mature topics, I feel like, in a really silly way. One thing that people go back to a lot is the Static Shock episode about a school shooter, which is crazy. You would never see that nowadays at all. It's way too of a controversial of a topic. But back then, like, that was a kid show, but they still talked about that, you know?
Yeah.
So
I still, even Static Shock is an example. I would think that even in its time, Static Shock was an outlier.
Yeah.
For what it did, for what it was willing to cover. Like, I loved that show as a kid. But, like, even then, it was set apart.
But even the sillier, goofy shows like your SpongeBob's and whatnot, they would throw in the occasional joke that kids would not find funny, but if mom and dad were watching, they would laugh and be like, what is that? But nowadays, it's just like, how loud and energetic can we get? But then again, 23-year-old man on the outside looking in, I'm not sitting watching SpongeBob every morning.
I don't feel that I consume enough children's media to make an educated opinion on. I mean, it may just be I watch it at a surface level, just based off things I see on Twitter or things that get posted to YouTube, and they're obviously posting a very surface level understanding because they're not avid watchers either. So I think there could be, even just framing this argument back 15 years, looking at SpongeBob, you could see some of the stuff that occurs on the show and think that's dumb just because you're not an avid watcher and you're not understanding the intricacies of the humor.
The inner mechanisms of my mind are an enigma. The milk falls over.
Do you think this has been affected at all by, like, the rise of the iPad kid? And now that TV is competing for attention with, like, the lowest IQ, cheapest, fastest content that could get put out?
I think
which is those colorful balls on YouTube rolling down the hill.
I think that's a fair argument.
Great show.
If you look back at shows in the 90s and 2000s and whatnot, they each had a very distinct art style, which is, I think, reflective of how the culture changed in kids' media, which is
also
crazy
technology.
Thing to be talking about. Yes,
you had to draw that stuff.
You had to draw it, but it was very unique. Like Chowder, the characters as they moved, the background would stay stagnant, but it was just crazy. The pattern would stay the same, but they'd be moving. You just got to watch it. The way SpongeBob was drawn back in the day, he was a lot more defined. You know, he was less of just a square, more of like a kind of a rectangle, I guess. But then as time has progressed, these shows have started picking up, I guess, like the Disney flat, bubbly kind of art style. Like, even looking at shows that are still around from when we were kids, they're still reflective of the very generic, formulaic kind of art style.
Well, it's about speed. It's faster and cheaper to make episodes that way. I mean, not to necessarily, like, say the content. They're probably also working with reduced budgets and wanting to push out more episodes than they necessarily used to have to, especially when you were competing with other kinds of media like that. And, like, maybe, honestly, like, this entire thing has probably been rehashed by everyone too and seen children's media currently. Like, this has probably been happening for the last 40, 50 years, where it's like, oh, everything's terrible now. They don't even show Howdy Doody to kids anymore. But, like, I don't know.
I think that, I mean, y'all have already said this, but shows back then, I feel, were more made for the love of making them instead of money. And, like, they were made to educate kids. I mean, like, there's obviously exceptions now, and then Gravity Falls recently is a great exception to that. But, like, back then, like, there was Hey Arnold episodes, like, that were teaching you, like, serious stuff about, like, adoption.
Like racism. And
like Hey, I mean, that's obviously, like, there's more examples of just Hey Arnold, but those are the ones I didn't watch that much, but I remember some of those episodes were, like, because he's adopted by his grandparents and stuff. Like, how often is that happening now? I mean, like, I still have siblings.
Sure.
I'm the oldest, and I still have 3 younger siblings that watch that type of stuff. And, like, some of the shows are still entertaining. Like, Big City Greens and Craig of the Creek, they're not bad. But they're, like, Craig of the Creek actually does touch on some serious subjects sometimes. But, like, other than that, it's not often.
I think, another thing is that we're also having just to deal with the inescapable fact that in recollection of the past, we're ignoring most things. We're only remembering what's memorable. and the memorable stuff is usually the good stuff. So I think when this conversation's had 20 years in the future about current kids media, people will be pulling out the gems, the diamonds in the rough, the stuff that was good, and forgetting largely what wasn't. And I think, there's probably plenty of not good kids shows that, like Chopstocky Chooks. Remember that?
Huh?
That show about those kung fu fighting chickens?
No.
Exactly.
You were
Fanboy and Chum Chum,
Jake the Dragon?
lowest IQ show that
Jake
I've
the
ever
Dragon was
watched
good.
that I did like.
So yeah, I think those are pretty good examples.
My Life as a Teenage Robot.
What was that one where it was like,
My Jim Party's Monkey.
I'm really reaching here, but you're itching a part of my brain.
I'm gonna pull it
out.
Pull it out
Okay.
of your head.
So it was like a team of like 9 or 10 unique
Monkey
kinda
robots.
kung fu guys. No,
Oh.
but at the beginning of every episode, they would respond to a crisis, and they would
Codename
ride
Kids
out.
Next Door?
No, they would ride out on like turtles. And then I remember the lead guy was like your generic
can,
kind of
like, see
martial
this
arts
in my
ninja
head.
guy. He had like kind of like a brick head almost.
Are you
but
thinking about Ninjago?
it's not Ninjago. No, it's 2D animation. It was on Cartoon Network. It'd play in the mornings, and it's really going to bother me. It was something like Super Team, something like that. But I remember they would ride out on turtles. I want to say that one of them had like a hat that, like, she'd walk on her hat. If I'm remembering that correctly? I got to look this up. I got to look up old Cartoon Network shows.
We're going to look it up over the break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss it. If you'd like to.
Hero 108?
What's it look like? Yes, that was it.
All right, Hero 108. All right, we're still going to take that break, though. So if you want to tweet at us a kids show you remember or don't like, tweet at us at CDiscAU, and we'll talk about it on the air. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these messages.
Are you going to shake my hand? I'm having a stroke. Wow, you're not even moving your arm. I'm having a stroke.
When someone is having a stroke, they may not be able to say it with words, but their body language will tell you loud and clear. Look for FAST. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911 immediately. Know the sudden signs. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Are you receiving unemployment? You could be a victim to fraud. Here's how you can protect yourself and your benefits. Never post your personal information online. Never pay anyone who says they can speed up your claim. And always keep an eye on your credit report and bank accounts to monitor your sensitive information. Report fraud at labor.alabama.gov/fraud. Brought to you by the ADOL, ABA, and this station. ADOL is an equal opportunity employer program. Auxiliary aids and services available upon request to individuals with disabilities. Dial 711 for TTY accessibility.
I'm Tiffany. I have some tips for you on how to quit smoking like I did. First, I did some reading about it. I found a lot of great advice on how to quit smoking and picked out the ways I thought would work best for me. I started by setting a quit date. Then I threw out my ashtrays, lighters, and matches. I did other things too, like exercising more, and it worked. But I'd still get cravings, especially on long car rides. To help me with that, I put a picture of my mother in my car. She died of lung cancer from smoking cigarettes when I was only 16. Now I have a 16-year-old daughter. That picture of my mother reminds me that I don't want to miss all the things my daughter is going to do in her life, including turning 17.
You can quit. For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CDC.
Over the years, you've brought them into your home. You were prescribed opioids after the C-section, when Dad injured his back, when your basketball star tore his ACL. Opioids helped with the pain, and you held on to them just in case. But did you know holding on to unused opioids puts your family at risk? Opioids are powerful pain-reducing prescription medicines, but most people who are prescribed opioids don't finish their prescriptions. So millions of unused opioids are sitting in homes across the country. And tragically, more than 100 Americans die every day from overdoses involving opioids. What can you do to protect your family? Remove the risk of unused opioids from your home. Pills, patches, or syrups in drawers, purses, and cabinets, anywhere they might be hiding. To find out how to dispose of them properly, visit www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
And welcome back to Compact Discourse right here on WEGL 91.1 FM, WEGLFM.com. Welcome into the show. Thank you so much for listening on this fine Tuesday morning. We hope you enjoyed your long weekend and your Labor Day as well. Hope you got up to something fun and hope you enjoyed the game on Saturday as Auburn took down Akron 60-10 in the first night game in Jordan-Hare Stadium since Tennessee, shrug, not that important. All right, this weekend we got Alabama State coming up. That's an 11 a.m. kick. It's going to be on SEC Network. Visiting Alabama State Hornets are 1-0, same as the Tigers. And that brings us right to our trivia question for the week, which is not Hornet trivia. It is Alabama State trivia, in that it's trivia about the state of Alabama. Alabama is home to one of the most rare astrophysiological phenomenons to ever occur in the entire world. It is the only first ever documented and recordable and verifiable instance of something happening, and that is something that is known as the Oak Grove Meteorite. Now, the Oak Grove Meteorite fell in, of course, Oak Grove, Alabama, which if you're driving from Birmingham to Auburn or vice versa, it's around Sylacauga. So you'll see a sign, "Welcome to Oak Grove, home of the Oak Grove Meteorite." The Oak Grove Meteorite is the first falling object from space to ever do something very specific. And the trivia question is, what is that specific thing? It's the first time in recordable history that it's ever happened, and maybe the only time ever. Now, there's some claims that it's happened before, but this is the only verifiable time it's happened. So the trivia question is as simple as that. What did that Oak Grove Meteorite do to become so famous? Also a preview of what we got coming up later on this week and next week. We've got Will Root, DJP, and Dylan coming on tomorrow to discuss music and Auburn Stages. Auburn Stages is, of course, on Thursday at 5 p.m. on the Cater Lawn. Aren't going to want to miss that one. We hope you came to the one last week as well. And UPC is, of course, partnering with Tiger Knights once again to host a spike ball tournament tomorrow night from 7 to 11 p.m. If you would like to participate in that, registration does close at midnight tonight. So be sure to get your name registered. I think that's aub.ie/spikeball, aub.ie/spikeball if you want to register for that spikeball tournament. It's on the campus green tomorrow evening from 7 to 11. That's UPC and Tiger Knights, and be sure to register by today if you want to participate in that. Also, next week on the 15th, which I believe is a Wednesday, we've got the Auburn Hockey Club coming on the show to discuss their first game of the season, which is a road game in Pelham against Alabama. So Auburn Hockey is kicking off their season. Auburn Hockey is great friends of us here at WEGL. We've been partnering with them with a long time. So I've been talking with Brandon about getting some guys on the show, just like old times, to discuss what it is going to be like having their first hockey season in 2 years, taking on Alabama, who is always a tough opponent. And that is the weekend. I think the game is going to be on Friday, the 17th, the day before the Penn State game. So get excited for that one, get excited for the game, and get excited for the hockey team's appearance on Compact Discourse. All right, enough housekeeping. Let's get on with the show. I'm, of course, your host, Jack Hart, joined alongside Davis Carroll, Chris DiBias, and Grayson Moyer. Welcome into the booth with us this morning. If you're watching on the video live stream, we're discussing children's TV shows, their ramifications, what they mean for us and society, and what we can learn from them. Take it away, Chris.
As long as we're talking about shows of our generation, one interesting theory that was actually brought to me by Jack, if he wants to take it away here in a minute, was that some of these shows, some of the more memorable ones, like your Adventure Times, your Gravity Falls, and specifically your regular shows, they are good because of the limitations of being classified as a children's show, not because they have free range to do the crazy stuff that we associate with a more adult show.
Especially adult animation, I might add.
Especially adult animation, yeah. Like your Family Guys and American Dad, South Park, whatever. Jack, do you want to talk on that a little bit?
Right. I think there's a humor in restraint, and I think trying to make a joke without being able to make a joke leads to more creativity, more exploration of options, which often leads to better ideas. I mean, you have to go to plan A, B, C, D, E to get to your joke rather than just going for the joke. And I think without getting into specifics, because I really can't think of any off the dome, I'd have to kind of think about this a little more. But that's what makes regular show great, because there's some pretty off-color things in regular show for something that's airing on the one click of your remote away from Disney Channel. I mean, there's weird jokes. There's jokes that I didn't get watching it for the first time, and I was in 8th grade, So it's super interesting to see that was a show that was conceived as adult animation, which ended up coming out as adult animation. J.G. Quintel was it called Close Enough?
I think it was.
Are you talking about the newer Amazon Prime original?
The new J.G. Quintel show, which is effectively adult regular show.
Well, have y'all seen so regular show also aired on Adult Swim. Have y'all ever seen the edits between the Adult Swim versus the Cartoon Network versions?
I have.
I have not.
They would occasionally change phrasing for things, or it was actually the original phrasing that they wanted, and they would change it to make it more kid-friendly. And there are compilations of the different, I guess, dubs would be the right word for it, that aired on Adult Swim versus like the kids edition of Cartoon Network.
That's interesting, because it actually is exactly the same as a clip I saw recently comparing the American version of Total Drama Island to the Canadian version of Total Drama Island. Because the Canadian version was more of a, I guess, teen to young adult show, while here in America it was branded as a kid's show. So there's actually jokes that are completely cut out, or dialogue that's changed to use more, we'll say, colorful language.
Canadian.
More direct references and innuendos, we'll say, in the Canadian version than in the American version, where in the American clips they hint at what they do in the Canadian version, which I think is interesting that regular show has that too, because I never actually knew that. So, pretty interesting.
I looked it up now, but as far as I know, Canada is closer to like the UK in terms of how they handle TV censorship laws. Like technically, OTA, over-the-air TV, has the same rules as radio in the US. No cursing, no super off-color content. And cable doesn't really have that, but it generally follows it to an extent, and I think it might be the actual regulations are looser, and therefore the networks that sort of grew up there are a little bit more relaxed with how they handle like what content is what's shown to what people. But I'm going to look into that right now.
That would make sense, because some of those clips, it was just, there was no sugarcoating. Like, they were actually doing something or saying something like swear words and whatnot, when in America they would say like holy pepperoni or something like that.
I mean, how did you feel about Adventure Time kind of going from a classic Americanized young adult animation to becoming more serialized and plot-driven?
That Davis and I were actually talking about that over the break a little bit. I think Adventure Time, personally, not a big Adventure Time guy. Like, I'm not wearing the Finn hat or whatever, but I can appreciate it for what it was, because I think Adventure Time came out when the audience was like 10, 11, and it started off as that show where it was just a silly dude in a silly world with a gumball princess and, a talking elephant or whatever.
Stretchy dog.
And then it became this crazy, it kind of grew up with the audience. Like, it did try to keep tailoring to 10 and 11-year-olds, and eventually tailored to 15-year-olds, then 18-year-olds, and eventually like 20-year-olds, to where they're tackling much more adult topics like your depression and love and, dealing with dementia, stuff like that. Like, it got kind of crazy. So hats off to Adventure Show for growing up with their audience and doing it in an appropriate way.
I remember when the Lich King showed up in that one episode. That scared. That was like when it kind of took the turn to the more serious.
Is that when Finn lost his arm?
No, that was
later.
way earlier. That was like
Earlier?
first season. First season. That was like the first big villain, and like he showed up. It was so scary.
I remember that too. The Lich King. I remember the trailers they would show. Each episode, and you'd be hyped for the next episode to come out. But for whatever reason, sticks with me forever is Billy the hero, no tongue.
I don't remember that one.
You know what I'm talking about?
I remember when they tried to get Finn over his fear of the ocean, and he has to like float in the water, but it's like a monster to him or something. That was quite creepy.
Another good arc I remember is when they introduced the Fire Princess, and Finn kind of was trying to get over Bubblegum Princess. I think it was her name.
You'll see a lot of Adventure
Princess
Time on
Bubblegum,
TikTok.
sorry.
It's very fondly remembered. You'll see a lot of clips on TikTok of Adventure Time.
Not
Serious
surprising.
moments.
Not surprising at all. It's kind of like the ultimate version of the Roman kid.
And with that, we are going to head to our 9 o'clock break. So you are listening to Compact Discourse right here on WEGL 91.1 FM. We're We're going to be back in about 5 minutes, half the show, so don't go anywhere. Be sure to check out the part of the first hour. We had a good discussion about productivity, the 5-day work week, what that means to be human, and how it transformed into cartoons. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with the second half of the show in about 5 minutes.
And landowner John Prue.
We purchased the land about 3 years ago, and there was an old farmstead on there with trees. We were going to clear the land so we could farm through it. We thought we knew where the pipe was, so we didn't call to get it located. The work on our property led to the damage of a light crude pipeline. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but it could have been much worse.
Never assume the location or depth of underground lines. Always call 811 or visit clickbeforeyoudig.com before you start work. A message from the Pipeline Operators for Ag Safety campaign.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how, and we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids need to know the dangers and how to avoid them. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids, because when you talk, they hear you.
Staying on course without support is tough. With help from family and community, you get valuable support for recovery from a mental or substance use disorder. Join the Voices for Recovery. Visible, vocal, valuable.
For confidential information on mental and substance use disorders, including prevention and treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
It's the top of the hour, about 9 a.m., and you're still listening to WEGL 91.1 FM. Well, you made it this far. Go get yourself a cup of coffee. You've earned it.
I really need a cup of joe, and if I don't get one, I think I might blow a gasket, and it's not a pretty sight.
We'll be right back in a few minutes with the second half of the show. Thank you so much for listening to Compact Discourse.
I'm Tiffany. I have some tips for you on how to quit smoking like I did. First, I did some reading about it. I found a lot of great advice on how to quit smoking and picked out the ways I thought would work best for me. I started by setting a quit date. Then I threw out my ashtrays, lighters, and matches. I did other things too, like exercising more, and it worked. But I'd still get cravings, especially on long car rides. To help me with that, I put a picture of my mother in my car. She died of lung cancer from smoking cigarettes when I was only 16. Now I have a 16-year-old daughter. That picture of my mother reminds me that I don't want to miss all the things my daughter is going to do in her life, including turning 17.
You can quit. For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CDC.
The thought of my sons growing up without me inspired me to quit smoking.
I talked to my doctors, and then I threw away all my cigarettes, ashtrays, and lighters.
I started exercising instead of smoking.
Getting support from friends online kept me on track.
Staying away from alcohol when I was first quitting was key.
Instead of smoking after I ate, I'd get up and take a walk.
I missed having a cigarette in my hand, so I'd hold a pen or a straw, anything.
Until I knew I wouldn't give in to temptation, I spent more time with my friends who didn't smoke.
I went to places that were smoke-free.
I didn't stay quit the very first time
And I learned something each time. No matter how many times
I quit. So can you.
You can quit. For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and CDC.
welcome back to Compact Discourse right here on WEGL FM, WEGLFM.com, our live stream on YouTube, or however you may be joining us this fine Tuesday morning. We hope you had a wonderful long weekend and enjoyed your Labor Day off from work, school, or what have you. But we are glad you are joining us today this morning, where it is a lovely 74 outside, and we're enjoying the sunshine while we still can. The summer days are not here for long, so we're enjoying them while we can. I'm, of course, your host, Jack Hart, joined alongside Davis Carroll and Chris DiBias. Grayson Moyer had to go do some work, as you can see in the background. He's in his office now, but we had a replacement. Off the bench comes Jacob Hillman, co-sports director here at WEGL and fan favorite here on Compact Discourse. We're going to jump right back into our discussion, but, of course, Hillman, how are you doing today? And how's the weather if you're an Extra Point fan?
A little humid. So I don't like that. If it rains, it's going to be
Yeah,
terrible.
I mean, I took my bite, and it became instantly wet.
Exactly. Right. So not great idea. College football and just a good long weekend.
It was a great weekend. I was just relishing it last night. The friends, but it sat with me for a little while last night.
Yeah.
Last night.
I beat number 18 Virginia Tech, and then I just took a note.
Army team is really bad.
Listen, he's a
They were
new
difficult.
beast.
Right. So, of course, welcome in, Hillman. We are discussing sort of a broad-based